Tonight, fallout fears as Russia blasts a massive nuclear power station. The latest live from Ukraine. Tributes for Australian cricket legend Rod Marsh, dead at 74. Massive cleanups underway in New South Wales and Queensland. Victoria set for a wet weekend. A Melbourne couple in a heart-wrenching race to save their baby from the war zone. The Foo Fighters set to rock Geelong with a landmark show. And AFL stars on a mission to help after the Tasmanian jumping castle tragedy.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Madden.
Good evening. Russian tanks have shelled a major nuclear power station in a chilling escalation of the war in Ukraine. The plant was hit with barrage after barrage, leaving it on fire, and the Ukrainian president warning of a catastrophe if the attack didn't stop. Chris Reason has the latest from the war zone.
Scenes that were feared, now real. An attack on a nuclear plant. The Ukrainian president issuing this shocking warning.
If there is an explosion, that's the end for everyone. The end for Europe. The evacuation of Europe.
Russian forces firing from all sides, triggering a blaze outside the reactors.
These are tanks equipped with thermal cameras, meaning that they know what they're shooting at. They prepared for this.
Despite earlier reports, the Ukrainian government says at this stage there has been no increased levels of radiation, as plant officials took to social media pleading,
"There's a real threat of a nuclear danger. We demand they stop the heavy weapons fire at the energy blocks."
The fire apparently hitting a training building and, as if the local mayor has to say it,
"Come to your senses. Immediately stop firing at the nuclear power plant."
Only days ago, locals turned out to protest, fearing the Russians would carry out this very attack. The plant is the biggest in Europe. It provides a quarter of Ukraine's power. At the country's most notorious plant, Chernobyl, scene of the world's worst nuclear meltdown, soldiers stand guard. As further south, the war rages. Not a military target, but a neighbourhood square. 33 people murdered. The bodies unshowable. The children, she shouts. Without mercy, this Russian bombardment in Chernihiv has left a school and homes levelled, and it doesn't stop. Another attack, this time in Kharkiv, residents once again running in terror. From coastal Mariupol in Ukraine's south to the smouldering ruin of lives in Borodyanka in the east, and the capital, Kiev, is under siege, still accessible from the west, but it's ring-fenced. There are roadblocks after roadblocks. The sandbags and wooden pallets hardly seem a match for what is coming. Another bombing here in the northern suburbs of Kyiv. Grad bombs, not missiles this time. When this conflict began, that Russians were restricting themselves to targeting only in the early morning and late evening, the dawn and the dusk. Now it is all day, every day, and indiscriminate. And those planes are being guided in by Russian spies in Ukraine, who paint markers on roads and buildings. These locals found one, covered it up.
You tried putting paint on it?
Yeah.
And now you put grass on top?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Russian President Vladimir Putin has told his people it's not their fault.
I repeat, our soldiers and officers are trying to prevent civilian casualties.
Later telling French President Macron he would pursue his military operation until the end. There's been a second round of peace talks, the Ukrainians dressed in military garb, the Russians in suits. This is business for them. And as food queues grow, at least they've agreed to humanitarian corridors to get civilians out, with the UN now predicting up to 10 million people may flee if the violence continues.
And Chief Reporter Chris Reason joins us now live from Kiev. Chris, what's the situation at the nuclear plant right now?
Yeah, good evening to you, Beck. Well, the good news is that they have confirmed that the fire is now out. It started around 2:30 a.m. local time, but the first 4 hours the firefighters couldn't even get into the plant because it was under such heavy fire and mortar shelling. They finally managed to talk those troops down and broker that ceasefire to let those emergency workers in. It was a 5-story training building attached to the facility that was on fire. The reactor itself didn't get affected, thank God, but with the Foreign Minister of Ukraine saying that if it had, had, this could have been 10 times the size of Chernobyl. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky saying today that he points out that Russia is now the first country in history to target and bomb a nuclear power plant. Beck?
Chris Resin reporting, thank you. The cricket world is paying tribute to one of the game's greats after the death of Rod Marsh. The 74-year-old Australian Test legend died this morning with his family by his side.
In an era of greats,
Rodney Marsh. It almost got away from him.
He was a giant.
And that is Rodney Marsh's 100.
The nation's safest pair of hands, part of a legendary partnership.
Court Marsh, Bowl Lily.
That went up on scoreboards 95 times, a record still unbroken.
Well, if I want a bouncer, I'll hold my hand up. If I want him to try and bowl a Yorker, I'll touch my toes.
And for the first time, a wicketkeeper who could really bat. Pity the poor bat. Putting everything on the line.
Oh, and that's hit him. Rodney Marsh is down.
In my time, there's only two people that had the dedication to the team and the cause. There was Ian Redpath and Rod Marsh. They would have died for the cap, the Australian cap. So that's my memory of Rod.
And killed for it on occasions too.
And nearly did.
Part of cricket's biggest moments, the infamous underarm bowl, making his feelings clear.
That wasn't good. Wasn't good for the game.
Joining the Rebel World Series cricket, knowing he'd miss out on being Test captain.
What would you rather be, captain of Australia or play with your mates?
Well, we should ask you that question.
Yeah, I'd rather play with my mates. Yeah.
He's my absolute hero, all-time hero. But then a coach, a mentor.
He was my poster man on the bedroom wall.
After retirement, with Australia's first cricket academy fostering future stars, Shane Warne, Brett Lee, punting on a teenage Ricky Ponting.
He was always the first one pushing for us young blokes. I'm not sure you can get any more loved and respected than what Rod Marsh was.
He helped England for a bit before becoming Australia's chairman of selectors.
There's a lot of hard work in front of us and the players.
Today's Australian team wearing black armbands in tribute with a moment's silence before taking on Pakistan.
Rod was a colossal figure of Australian cricket. He was always incredibly personable, a larger-than-life, life-loving character to be around.
He was part of one of the most exciting periods in Australian cricket and world cricket, and he was at the centre of it.
From Rod's family, he has been an incredible husband, father and grandfather, and we have been so fortunate to have had him in all of our lives. Suffering a heart attack in Queensland last week, the 74-year-old was brought home to Adelaide, where he died this morning. A life given to the game that meant everything. Paul Caddack, 7 News.
Victoria is on weather alert this weekend, with some parts of the state told to brace for heavy downpours. The good news, the rain won't be anything like the deluge in Queensland and New South Wales.
Underwater a second time in 2 years. Residents along the Hawkesbury Nepean rivers northwest of Sydney getting out.
We got smashed by the last floods and it was pretty horrendous, but we're hoping that it's not as bad.
Thankfully, it wasn't. The rivers peaked today below last year's major flood levels, but not before inundating 3,000 homes and destroying more than 500 businesses. Further north at Lismore, the Defence Force moved in to begin the clean-up.
Please, this time, please can the government help a little more?
As the Premier touched down in Ballina to tour the devastation.
I must say their spirits are incredibly high. Their spirits are high, and what we've seen here in Ballina is the great Australian spirit.
In Queensland, schools were closed and rescue workers told to stand down to shelter from a storm that never came. But the clean-up's only just begun.
I apologise for the inconvenience, but I think everybody would realise if you're in my shoes and you were given the advice that was given to us yesterday, I think everyone would have taken exactly the same decision.
Until now, Victoria's been spared the wild weather, but come the weekend, that's set to change.
We will see showers and storms spread across most of Victoria, so we will expect there to be the onset of some heavy falls for the Gippsland coast and the southern parts of the ranges there, and that'll also stretch around into parts of New South Wales.
Don't drive through floodwater, that's our key message. It puts responders at risk and the wider community at risk. Please don't do it. That's the last thing we want to do during these types of events.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
And meteorologist Jane Bunn joins us now. Jane, talk us through what the next few hours will look like.
Well, Beck, rain will slowly set in across the Melbourne area, but the heaviest falls aren't until after midnight. Here it is, gradually coming in from the west. The first part only just wets the ground, but an hour or two later it increases and becomes persistent. So the night will get wetter as it goes on. From this, we're expecting 15 to 30 millimetres across the Melbourne area. Locally, there can be up to 50, which is a month's worth of rain. Now, this brings slippery roads overnight as we haven't had proper rain for a while. Then it is showery for the rest of the weekend. The full details are after Sport, Beck.
Okay, thank you very much, Jane. Well, there has been a rise in the number of Victorians infected with Japanese encephalitis virus. Christy Cooper joins us now. Christy, this is starting to be a big worry for health authorities.
Beck, the federal government has declared the unfolding situation a communicable disease incident of national significance. In the last week, they've identified 8 suspected cases of the Japanese encephalitis virus in Victoria in people. 2 are children under 10 and 6 are adults. 6 people are currently in hospital in Victoria. All were exposed to mosquitoes. Symptoms people should look out for include a sudden onset of fever, headache, vomiting, seizures and disorientation. This is a mosquito-borne virus, most prevalent currently in towns along the Murray River. It mostly occurs in pigs and horses, but it can also affect people. It's so far been identified in 14 piggeries. The majority of people who contract this virus will have no symptoms, but around 1% of cases will develop encephalitis, which can be very serious. A Queensland woman in her 60s is in a critical condition after contracting the disease on a camping trip. Beck.
OK, Christy Cooper reporting. Thank you. India is resisting pressure to condemn Russia over the war in Ukraine. It's staying on the fence, putting it at odds with its Quad allies, Australia, Japan and the United States.
President Joe Biden couldn't quite remember its name.
I had a meeting this morning with the Quartet.
Not the Quartet, but the Quad meeting overnight. The US, India, Japan and Australia.
We're going to continue to support the people with direct assistance.
The meeting's unstated objective was to solidify unity against Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine by pressuring India to join the West's condemnation. It didn't work.
I do know from the discussions that we had last night that India is seeking to ensure that this violence ends.
But at the UN in New York this week, India joined China in abstaining from a resolution deploring the invasion.
Democratic nations need to be united in calling out this Russian aggression.
I'm not going to give advice to President Narendra Modi. I don't think he'll take it, and it'd be very unwise for me to give it.
As former Minister Alan Tudge announces he won't seek a return to the ministry, despite a government-ordered review finding his affair with a former press secretary did not breach ministerial standards. Rochelle Miller accused Mr Tudge of emotional and, on one occasion, physical abuse that he denied. But she refused to take part in the review conducted by former Inspector General of Intelligence Vivian Tom.
So help you God.
While not seeking a return to the ministry, Mr Tudge says he will recontest his Melbourne seat of Aston at the coming election. Mark Riley, 7 News.
A Melbourne couple is in a race to reach their desperately ill newborn daughter in a Ukraine hospital. They're getting closer, but know for their little girl, time is running out.
More than 1 million people have fled Ukraine this week as one Australian couple flew around the world to get in. Jess and Kevin Van Newton, desperate to reach their daughter Alba, born 10 weeks premature via surrogate on the eve of the invasion.
We had 15 rounds of IVF, a miscarriage, surrogacy, a global pandemic, a war. We're so close and she knows it and we just want her.
They're now in Moldova, less than 3 hours' drive from the strategically important port city of Odessa, where locals are bracing for an attack and where little Alba is in intensive care.
Overnight, she's had a hemorrhage, bleed on the brain, a bleed on her lungs, so she's in a pretty serious condition.
And we're not the only people that this is affecting.
Yeah.
surrogacy in Ukraine is huge.
Leaving or entering Ukraine is difficult. A charity based here in Poland was due to pick up a group of orphans here at the border tonight from Kiev. They're now weighing up what's safer, keeping the kids underground in a bunker or embarking on a 630-kilometre journey through a war zone. Part of the reason Andre is heading back, a military interpreter going to help the 16,000 foreigners who volunteered to fight for Ukraine.
I came to Poland the day before the invasion, and all that time I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I was all on the nerves. I was texting my friends who are on the front lines. I want to be a part of it, and share the victory with all the people of Ukraine.
To save lives and reunite families. On the Polish border, Sarah Greenodge, 7 News.
Sandown Racecourse in Springvale led the charge in our vaccination race with over 460,000 doses given from May last year to February this year. The second busiest state hub was the Royal Exhibition Centre. Victoria's recorded over 6,500 new cases and 26 people died with coronavirus. There are currently 245 COVID patients in hospital. The Foo Fighters are set to rock Geelong in a landmark one-off concert. Tegan Dolling is outside GMHBA Stadium. Tegan, this is the first major concert crowd in 2 years.
It's actually Australia's, Beck, and the excitement really is starting to build out here at the moment. It's incredible to think that they've been able to organise this in just 3 weeks. There's going to be 30,000 people inside the stadium, and we actually met some of the fans a little bit earlier today. They were so diehard. They spent the night sleeping in the line just so they could get as close as personal to the rock stars.
Ready to rock and roll.
Rock is in our blood.
Foo Fighters fans waited in line for hours.
Last night we came and we've been here for a while now. I can't wait to see them perform.
You weren't going to miss this though, were you?
Hell no.
Got to be a Fooey's fan. Even my kids are Fooey's fans. Love it.
All for this. 11-time Grammy Award winners, the first packed stadium performance in the post-pandemic era. Frontman Dave Grohl came up with the idea for the one-off concert, sharing his excitement with James Corden.
Opened up my phone, looked at the news, and saw that Australia was opening its borders.
Yes.
For the first time in years. It said February 21st. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, I text my manager, and I'm like, we need to go there next week.
The concert, in partnership with Victorian Government's Always Live music program, conceived by former Mushroom Group chairman Michael Gudinski, who died a year ago.
Everyone in our team was just eager to do whatever they needed to do to make sure that we pulled this off, and what a coup for Victoria, what a coup for Geelong.
The stage is set, this empty arena soon to be packed. The show sold out within hours of tickets going on sale. These photos from the band's soundcheck yesterday, expected to be on stage for 3 hours, similar to their performance at the iconic Madison Square Gardens last year. The Foo Fighters will take to the stage in just over 2 hours' time. There's a little bit of rain around. We do understand there's a bit more on the way. But Beck, in times like these, it's wonderful to see concerts restarting and the fans excited, ready to rock on.
Oh, well done. I hope you can stay. Thank you very much. Looks great. Well, 12 days out from the start of the AFL season, and Tim Watson, the league is dealing with a betting scandal.
They are, Beck, and it's developing fast. Chief football reporter Tom Brown has details. Tom, a young player has been suspended.
A young Gold Coast player, that's right, Tim, Reece Nichols, has been suspended for 2 weeks and fined $5,000 by the AFL for 10 bets placed from Nichols' accounts totalling $256, 6 of which involved the Gold Coast Suns. Now, this sentence is much lighter than that handed down to Jaden Stevenson and Heath Shaw previously, but AFL sources have indicated the key here is there's no guarantee that Nichols placed these bets from his account. Tim, separately tonight, 7 News can show you an email sent from the Players Association to all the players and agents today asking if the players want to opt out of the use of their image from betting advertisements. The email acknowledges, and the AFL also acknowledged, that some players have a genuine personal, moral or ethical objection to the use of their images in those betting commercials, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Also ahead, a Star Saint granted indefinite leave as St Kilda prepares to take on the Bombers. The costly fallout from the AFL's crackdown on umpire abuse after the reigning premiers cough up a defeat last night. Also, A health setback for Ash Barty and Beck. A change in vaccine rules looks set to allow Novak Djokovic to play in the French Open. Now, I'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. Well, Victoria reveals a new power play. Up next, a massive Australia First wind farm project as Daniel Andrews spells out his agenda. Also ahead, back to court for a troubled sports star. The NGV scores a Picasso coup as Melbourne comes back to life. And later, a new insight into what's triggering nut allergies. A driver has died after their car hit a tree and burst into flames north of Melbourne. The crash happened in Heathcote just after midnight. The driver is yet to be identified. The Premier has used a major address to announce an ambitious clean energy target. He says offshore wind farms are the key to powering every home in Victoria.
It wasn't quite as big as the State of the Union address, but it sounded similar.
The State of the Union is strong because you, the American people, are strong.
Ladies and gentlemen, the state of our state is strong because the people of our state are strong.
The Premier made his first public speech in 2 years, taking aim at the federal government.
The problem at the moment is that there is no national reform agenda coming out of the national government.
And then a major clean energy announcement.
For the first time anywhere in Australia, we will set a minimum target for offshore wind power generation.
The new targets mean 2 gigawatts or 20% of the state's energy would be produced by offshore wind farms by 2032. That's enough to power 1.5 million homes. By 2035, the aim is 4 gigawatts and 9 gigawatts by 2040, enough to power every home in Victoria.
Targets that, ladies and gentlemen, we will meet and that we will exceed.
Potential locations for the farms include Gippsland and Portland West. The state government promises to work with local communities to ensure the farms aren't intrusive. And while the Premier was being applauded, the Health Minister was being grilled at the Pandemic Committee, given he's still unable to say how many Victorians are waiting for elective surgery.
Please.
He's just given
80,000 at the end of December.
Ms. Crozier, just let him finish this part of the question. He's talking numbers.
Tell Victorians the true facts.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Former rugby league player Jared Hayne will face trial for a third time over sexual assault allegations. The 34-year-old spent 9 months behind bars after being found guilty of an attack on a woman in 2018. But he was released from jail in February when his conviction was successfully appealed. The Director of Public Prosecutions has decided to push ahead with a third trial. Concert goers had to be evacuated from Sydney's Enmore Theatre last night after part of the floor collapsed. It happened in the middle of a sold-out show where hundreds of people were dancing. The venue says relentless rain and excessive water was to blame. Thankfully, no one was injured. One of Melbourne's biggest annual attractions is set to feature works by Pablo Picasso this year. The Winter Masterpieces exhibition at the National Gallery of Victoria brings hundreds of thousands of people to the city.
It's just in time for Melbourne's reawakening. 70 Pablo Picasso works coming to the National Gallery of Victoria.
We would anticipate that this would be probably one of the most popular exhibitions we've ever mounted in our history.
This year's Melbourne Winter Masterpieces exhibition will be the Picasso Century. Dozens of his priceless paintings on their way from Paris.
These paintings are in demand for exhibitions around the world, so to ensure that we had these 70 paintings by Picasso in the exhibition, we had to wait almost 10 years for it to come, so it's a really exciting moment.
Opening June 10th, it's expected to attract hundreds of thousands of visitors.
Everybody has heard of Picasso, and I think that compels people to come and see the work.
If you want to see this, the only place you can see this exhibition is right here in Melbourne.
The NGV is already home to one of Picasso's most famous works, The Weeping Woman. It was made even more famous in the 80s when it was stolen, found 2 weeks later in a locker at Spencer Street Station.
What this exhibition will allow us to actually understand is this painting in the context of Picasso's career. We'll see it in the context of work that's all about the war.
There was a bustle returning to the city today. The latest data shows a jump in peak hour foot traffic this week. Weekend crowds almost back to pre-lockdown levels too, thanks to events like this one.
Melbourne is roaring back to life. This exhibition is a coup for our city and a coup for our state.
Christy Cooper, 7 News.
Melbourne families are being caught in a rent squeeze. Up next, rising rents and a property shortage, the suburbs that are facing a crisis. Also tonight, see how AFL stars are making a difference after a jumping castle tragedy in Tasmania. Sparks fly as a road driver tries to outrun police. And see the moment DJ the dog was found alive.
My boy, you made it.
After disappearing in the flood crisis on Live TV. A young survivor of the Devonport jumping castle tragedy hopes AFL players can help his town's recovery. Richmond and Hawthorn stars are in Tasmania for a tribute match for the community that lost 6 children.
At a special footy clinic to ease Devonport's pain, a special guest looks on. Fanatical Tiger, 12-year-old Declan Brown was in the jumping castle at Hillcrest Primary when a wind gust blew it 10 metres in the air.
I remember going up in the air and all that and then coming down. Then I remember just waking up in the hospital.
Declan was in a coma for a week, his injuries horrific.
Fractured hip, fractured pelvis. I did have a dislocated hip. And fractured spine, fractured neck.
6 of Declan's friends were killed in the tragedy last December. Richmond and Hawthorn players hope their Healing for Hillcrest game tomorrow will lift spirits. Tasmanian-born Tigers Jack Rewalt and Matthew Richardson say their state needs this.
It's moments like tomorrow and today that get to take the people that have been affected directly away from those thought processes and hopefully we can put a smile on the faces of some young kids.
I was shattered. I couldn't believe it. I grew up here and moved to Melbourne when I was 18, but this is home. I love coming back here and it was just horrible to hear that news and really upsetting.
And Declan, who hopes to start walking again in a few weeks, says all this will help his long, difficult recovery. How will it make you feel? Do you think it'll really help the town having the players here?
Yeah, I reckon it will relieve a lot of people seeing their teams play.
And Declan will be pleased to hear that tomorrow's match is fully booked out. More than 9,000 people are expected. Also today, family members of the 6 victims were briefed by police. They got an update on the investigation. Now, understandably after that, they were pretty upset. But most of them say, they will still attend the match here tomorrow as a way of saying thank you to the community for their support. Beck?
Great tribute indeed. Nick McCallum live in Devonport. Thank you. A pedestrian has died after being struck by a car at Noble Park last night. It's believed the man tried to cross Heatherton Road when he was hit. The driver stopped at the scene. Police and paramedics performed CPR, but the man couldn't be saved. Melbourne tenants are feeling the squeeze as the rental market tightens, with vacancy rates dropping and prices rising. The competition is being driven by the return of university students and interstate workers.
Finding a place to call home in Melbourne is becoming harder.
It has changed quickly, and I think, we're likely to continue to see a resurgence in rental demand, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. We've got those international borders being opened now.
The city's vacancy rate last month was 2.2%, down from 4.4% for the same time last year. It's now the tightest it's been since pre-pandemic March in 2020.
In the last couple of months, we've had record leasing numbers. Our stock list is as low as it has been for just over 2 years.
Family homes are in demand as professionals return after lockdowns.
An increased volume of relocation agents that are relocating executives from international as well as interstate.
The tightest squeeze is in Melbourne's outskirts. The Yarra Ranges, Cardinia Shire and the Mornington Peninsula have the fewest homes available to rent.
Real estate agents are encouraging prospective tenants to stay in touch because in some high-demand suburbs, 3/4 of properties coming onto the market for lease aren't even being advertised before they're snapped up.
In some regional areas, people have been squeezed out of the market.
We literally have people who are camping out in Ballarat and on the outskirts of Daylesford because they don't have anywhere to live.
And prices are expected to increase.
So I guess from a call out to those people who have an investment property and are lucky enough to have an investment property, don't jack up the prices of your home just because you can.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
A driver cornered by police has managed to stage a brief but destructive getaway with a 3-point turn and a trip down the footpath. The bins and bollards didn't stand a chance. Sparks flew as the vehicle was tracked from above, the chase eventually ending when officers caught up with the driver, breaking the window and arresting him. Well, a deer has caused quite a stir, ramming its way into a clothing boutique. After such a forceful entry, the animal wandered the aisles and checked out the goods. A group of locals eventually stepped in to remove the intruder when it began attacking another deer that it saw in the mirror. Well, a family has been reunited with their dog, feared drowned in the Lismore floods. DJ jumped into the water in fright as his owners were being rescued by Chopper live on TV. We all feared the worst, but DJ, well, he's a survivor.
A miracle among the mess.
Please be DJ. Oh yes, DJ.
A reunion with man's best friend, Mark O'Toole, never thought would happen.
My boy, you made it. You're a celebrity. You're all over the news.
Mark, his son and elderly neighbour were rescued from the roof of their home on Tuesday during Seven's live coverage of the floods.
These are live pictures of Woodburn, about 25 minutes south of Ballina.
DJ was taken by boat until he jumped into the raging currents.
Thinking, oh my God, how are we going to find, a dog in all of this?
But Mark never gave up searching, and yesterday afternoon he spotted something.
I've just turned to the right and I've seen this mound of twisted metal and a black and white dog sitting on it.
Then he heard barking.
Oh, thank you so much.
And that's when Mark knew it was his mate, DJ.
You made it, mate. Bugger everything else.
For that moment, everything else went away. It was just amazing that I found my daughter's dog. It was just unbelievable.
Like so many families, Mark has lost everything.
There's so much more to do, this really hasn't even started yet.
But it's moments like this that give people hope.
He's the cutest little guy in the world, isn't he? Any bit of lift and spirit in amongst all this is just, it's what we all need.
Matthew Carstunen, 7 News.
Well, Melbourne scientists have uncovered a new clue on what causes nut allergies. Details next on 7 News. Also, free at last after nearly 9 years locked in a Melbourne hotel. Help catch the dancing burglar targeting homes in Footscray. And Melbourne's first fleet of electric buses to be rolled out in the suburbs. An Iranian refugee is on his way to the United States after spending almost 9 years in immigration detention in Melbourne. Mehdi Ali became an advocate for asylum seekers at the Park Hotel when Novak Djokovic was being held there. He's been flown to the US to start his new life, but says he won't be happy until all of his friends are released from detention. The western suburbs will become home to Melbourne's first fleet of electric buses. Depots in Sunshine West and Heatherton will be upgraded to be home to 36 electric buses by 2025.
We can talk about net zero at 2050, but it's the action we do now that will get us there.
The first 5 will be hitting the streets in coming months. Melbourne scientists have found a link between pollen and nut allergies. It's part of new research on the effects of pollen on children's immune systems.
Swinging amongst the trees is a rite of passage, but researchers have uncovered a link between the city's flourishing greenery and a child's risk of developing a food allergy.
It turns out that there's quite a strong impact that pollen has on the immune system.
They explored the theory by recruiting more than 5,000 one-year-olds who live in Melbourne, testing each for food allergies, then looking at the environmental greenness of the location in which each child was raised, up to 1.6 kilometres from their homes.
We found that children who lived in areas where they were exposed to more greenness, so more trees and grasslands, these children were actually at a higher risk of developing food allergies.
To peanuts and to a lesser degree, eggs.
This will be really important for urban planners to consider what types of trees and shrubs that they are planting in local neighbourhoods.
Researchers are quick to point out the findings should be balanced against the benefits of getting kids out here into nature. And there are proven ways a parent can reduce the risk of their child developing a food allergy, like boosting vitamin D levels with safe sun exposure and introducing common allergenic foods between the ages of 6 and 12 months. The link to pollen, just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
We're learning snippets about what those factors are, but we certainly have not yet got the full picture.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
A thief with strange moves is being hunted over a series of robberies in Footscray. He tried to break into a home where he was caught on CCTV dancing around the property. Police say he and another man broke into multiple cars on the same day. The burglary spree was last Saturday. Well, the Bulldogs are looking to redeem themselves against the Lion tonight, but a key forward is missing out.
Yes, Beck, Luke Beveridge has left Jamara Ugle-Hagan out of his side. We're live to Marvel Stadium for the latest. Plus, AFL clubs in some more pain as strict new umpiring rules cost the reigning premiers. A key saint extends an extended break from the game less than 2 weeks from round one. Why the Aussies could be made to pay for a selection blunder in Pakistan. And Ash Barty feels the pain of a gruelling Australian Open campaign. Welcome back. The AFL's crackdown on umpire abuse is here to stay despite a very rocky start. Melbourne coach Simon Goodwin says the new rules cost his side the game against Carlton last night as other clubs buckle up for the monumental shift.
Max Gawn coughing up one of 8 Demon 50-metre penalties, the equal most ever recorded by a single side.
50 metres for abuse against Max Gawn. 50 for abuse against Max.
Carlton gifted 6 goals from 50s, 3 direct from umpire abuse.
This is a great lesson. Shut your mouth.
In what shapes as one of the biggest changes to the game this year.
But 8 50s is too much. You know, it cost us 6 goals in the game and was a big factor to deciding the result of the game.
You know, maybe we saw the strictest interpretation last night, but I think they've really tried to set an expectation of what they're looking for.
Goodwin summoning his players post-game.
Look, we spoke about it as a group because we want to be seen as a really disciplined footy club.
I've always found that the premiership team the year after is a little bit more generous with their feedback to the umpire.
Gil McLaughlin this week apologising for not stamping out abuse earlier. The game's 6,000 umpires short across the country.
I think it's the players now with the arms out, you know, pointing to the scoreboard, throwing the mouth guard on the ground. The demonstrative stuff where everyone can see isn't a good look.
The AFL has today kept silent on the specific decisions from last night's game, but says it will comment at the completion of the weekend's matches.
It's a chance to be able to go back and learn and sort of probably reinforce just how tight it's going to be. So it's just something we have to be careful and make sure that we manage.
Patrick Cripps leading the way with 4 goals, giving Voss's Blues renewed hope of scoring their first round 1 win over Richmond since 2012.
And teams have just dropped for tomorrow's games. Hawthorn resting Tom Mitchell, Jager O'Meara to miss with hamstring tightness. They face Richmond, who welcome back Trent Cotchin. At Essendon, a quirky selection call. Dylan Steele named emergency this week, despite playing last week off his groin complaint. Their opponent St Kilda still without Dan Hanbury and Paddy Ryder. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. Still on AFL, and the Bulldogs are facing one of the season's likely powerhouse sides tonight. Tom Brown is inside Marvel Stadium. Tom, you've spoken to the Dogs about why they haven't picked their #1 draft pick last year.
Tim, a good test for the Dogs. They'll come against the Lions, who a lot of experts have as genuine premiership contenders. But you mentioned the absence of Jamara Ugle-Hagan, the Bulldogs' coveted #1 pick. He's playing as we speak in the VFL. A lot of recruiters I speak to, Tim, talk about his immense talent. He has been working hard. They'd like to see a bit more grunt and a bit more aggression. This is the Bulldogs' response tonight to his absence this evening.
Amara, to his own admission, probably wasn't as strong as he would have liked to have been against Essendon, so he had a couple of key things to work on out of that game, and I think the VFL is a really good opportunity for him to go back and work on that. And in terms of future plans, certainly he's absolutely, in contention.
Tim, meantime, we revealed today that Zach Jones, the St Kilda star, has been granted indefinite leave by the Saints. Now, it's because and for his personal health and well-being. There's no time frame on a return. Simon Lethlean, their football manager, emphasising he's got all the time in the world to focus squarely on his health and well-being, Jones. But it's a big blow on the eve of the season for St Kilda. Jones is particularly important for their midfield, their run and carry and their speed. He is their speed. It's a big year for Brett Ratton, and Jones's absence, at least in the initial part of the season, is significant for the Saints, Tim.
Indeed, Tom, and we wish him well too. Australia has been put under the pump with questions over their selection for the first test against Pakistan. The home side sits in a dominant position after the opening session at 1 for 105.
24 years in the making, Australia's return to Pakistan tinged with sadness. A minute's silence and black armbands for Rod Marsh. Pakistan with the ideal start.
We are going to batting first.
Ashes hero Scott Boland squeezed out.
Yes, we're going to go with three quicks, Stark, Hazelwood, myself and Nath Lyon.
Three quicks for the Aussies, a long day ahead on a flat Rawalpindi wicket.
Maybe a big shot from Stark, so they're going upstairs.
Impact on line, wickets missing.
Just 7 overs down and Nathan Lyon thrown the ball.
Oh, and again.
Clear turn in the first hour. The decision to play just one frontline spinner looked questionable.
Oh, chance. It's almost hit him before he realised.
Pat Cummins forced to turn to Travis Head in the 17th over in search of a breakthrough.
That's a solid shot down the ground. And that's
100 up without loss before lunch.
Down the ground, just stands and watches. No respect at all.
Before a gift just before the break.
Not there, and he's hit it high. Why? I have no idea again. It's a very good catch. That is an outstanding catch.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Australian Open champion Ash Barty has delayed her return to tennis, saying her body hasn't fully recovered from January's Grand Slam win. The world number one has withdrawn from hard-court events at Indian Wells and the Miami Open, where she's the two-time defending champ. Meantime, Novak Djokovic looks set to play at the French Open, with the country easing vaccination rules later this month. And Beck, the Winter Paralympics get underway in Beijing later tonight, with the opening ceremony here on 7 from 10:40.
Terrific.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much, Tim. Well, Janie's next with the forecast. Jane, when does this rain clear up?
Well, Beck, after heavy rain in the early hours, it'll break tomorrow morning. Then a showery weekend follows. The details are next. Hello again. Rain is gradually developing in Melbourne. It will increase in the next few hours. The heaviest falls are likely between 3 and 8 a.m. Here is the rain spreading across southwestern Victoria this afternoon, slowly progressing eastwards, gradually settling in. The heaviest part is at the back edge of the rain band with thunderstorms. 15 millimetres in Portland, a quick 6 in Hamilton. The city peaked at 32.5 as bright sunshine slowly gave way to high cloud that thickened and turned dark, as here is the rain coming in from the west. It slowly develops over a few hours, properly wetting the ground and settling in, but the heaviest falls aren't until early tomorrow. Temperatures are falling. Humid air had been building up over Victoria from the east coast deluge, but this rain is coming from the west. The remains of a cyclone are feeding low pressure, and it slowly crosses us this weekend. Here is what to expect tonight. The first part is only just wetting the ground. It isn't until the darker blues and purple, when they arrive, it is heavier. That heavier rain crosses central Victoria, including Melbourne, in the early hours of tomorrow. Then it works its way across eastern Victoria in the morning and afternoon, followed by lots of showers in behind it, continuing on Sunday. Now, this is not a weather system for the northwest. Don't expect much there. But the south and east are likely to see 15 to 30 millimetres, locally 50 or 60. These parts of Gippsland may see 50 to 100. That is where it is heaviest on Saturday and Sunday too. These rivers may go into minor flooding. The far east, also the Mitchell River and Bairnsdale. Around the nation tomorrow, Sydney and Brisbane dry for much of the time. There is the risk of thunderstorms. Directly under those, it is heavy. Rain and storms late afternoon and evening in Canberra. In Hobart, late showers there. Mild and mostly dry in Adelaide, warm and sunny in Perth. To Victoria, a large area of rain and locally heavy storms. It progresses from central districts through the east. Showers to follow with milder southwesterly winds, but still quite humid. Closer in, the overnight heavy rain is due to clear by mid-morning. Then lots of showers passing through, first mainly in the east, then increasing in the west again late afternoon and at night. It is cooler tomorrow, but still muggy. Early rain followed by showers passing through. So it goes wet, dry. It's a changeable Saturday. To the 8-day outlook, the showery weather does continue on Sunday, another top of 21. It eases by Sunday night, and that is when the humidity disappears. So our overnight lows are dropping for next week. Showers are likely on Tuesday, but generally a lovely stretch of autumnal weather is due at the end of next week. Cooler but still muggy tomorrow. Steady rain, heaviest between 3 and 8 a.m. Then lots of showers passing on through. We haven't had showery weather for a while.
Oh, I hope those Foo Fighters don't get too wet.
It'll be interesting.
Jane. All right. And that's 7 News. Take your ponchos. We'll have updates throughout the evening. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.